Hey, this is Andrew Mackay-Smith with an introduction before the introduction. Gosh, I feel like Jamie Jaster's saying that, but I thought I need to give you, dear listener, a bit of a heads up that the audio quality, my audio quality, so not Gene Hoglan's, but my audio quality is absolutely shocking through this conversation here. But Gene offers far too much worthy insight for me not to broadcast the podcast episode. So I've done everything I can in Premiere Pro, which is a program that I use to edit the podcast conversations. To fix it, use Pitch Shifter and a few other things, but it was a bad audio source to begin with from my part. So my apologies to you, dear listener, and also to Gene if you happen to listen to this one here. But please do try to bear with me through the audio quality on my side, because Gene offers so much wonderful responses and so much great content there, particularly about the great Chuck Chaldina. So here we go. You're listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. The interview subject that I have coming up for you is drum god, drum legend, one of the greatest hard rock, heavy metal, however you want to describe him. He's one of the best drummers that's ever existed. It is Gene Hoglan. The reason for the conversation is to talk up his appearances in Dark Angel. God, I never thought I'd say that, but here we go. His appearances in Dark Angel in Australia. The band are touring in September, and I'll read out the 4 dates. Brisbane on the 25th, Sunday on the 26th, Melbourne on the 27th, and Adelaide, you get a show on the 28th. Now, we do talk about some in-store appearances that apparently Gene has lined up as well, but I cannot find them anywhere online, to be honest with you. So what I suggest you do if you live in Australia or you're travelling here for the shows, if you're outside of the country, just Google when those shows will be, because I have no doubt that each of the 4 Dark Angel shows will have a corresponding in-store appearance by Gene, demonstrating his considerable technique. Let's get to it. Here he is, the legendary drummer, Gene Hoglan. Hey, Gene Mackay-Smith calling for our chat. How you going?
Hey there, how are you?
Mate, I'm not doing too badly. It's a sprightly 6 a.m. moment where I'm at. Still dark.
Holy moly, too early.
Well, I got an opportunity to talk to the great Gene Hoglan, so I'm going to take it. You're going to take it no matter what time it is.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. That's very nice. Thank you.
Cool. I wouldn't expect you to remember these things, but when you to Australia back in 1999, yeah, I think I'm writing that, 98, 1999, with Strapping Young Lad, we actually did have a conversation, and it was a very pleasant one. Yeah, we conversation about Chuck, actually, and the work that you were doing, because, of course, Chuck was still back then, and we're talking about some of the work that you had been involved with Death, and if there was any chance that you were going to sort of rejoin and get involved in the Control Denied project.
Oh, that's right. There you go. Well, yeah, I guess we see what happened there, so...
Yeah, that's right. But it's I know we talk about Dark Angel, but my God, you know, to talk to you, mate, and appearing some of my favourite albums of all time, alongside the great man himself. But I mean, what else can I say? It's your drumming. I think allowed your drumming, and not Paul Mel. Who was the fellow who was in the band before you? I'm so early in my brain.
That was Jack Schwartz. Yeah, Jack Schwartz before
Jack
me.
Schwartz. So there you go, and Sean Reinert as well. You know, you guys all contributed.
We're talking about Death. Oh yeah, yeah. Billy Andrews and Chris Reifert and Death. I thought you were talking Dark Angel, but
oh, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah. Sean Reinert before me, and before was Billy, and then there was Chris before Billy.
Yeah. When you were working with Chuck, was he the sort of guy to issue instructions? Because I imagine he just assembled the best musicians available and just said, "Guys, do your thing." Is that how it worked with him?
That is precisely how it worked. I mean, Chuck was always, he was very, very open-minded, and he was into having his musicians that were playing with him just reach out for the best stuff that they had. And, every time I'd come up with some crazy beat, he'd be like, "Oh, I'm good. I can play my riffs over your beat. So if that's one you want, go with it. Go sick, go nuts. I'm good over here. So you keep doing your thing." And so in that regard, Chuck was always a real pleasure to work with in that way, because you had no handcuffing whatsoever. Any handcuffing, and it was pretty apparent. Nobody handcuffed me on the drums. I played everything, on Symbolic. Oh, I talk about there is definitely some overplaying, but Chuck never ever said, hey, don't play that or that's not working. The only time I remember anything like that happening was two different times, and one was in the individual thought patterns session, and that's where Scott Burns, while I was tracking what was it? Trapped in a Corner? No, not Trapped in a Corner. Jealousy. I think that's a song that goes whatever that one. I remember Scott had said, "Hey man, I'm not feeling that beat. Maybe can you simplify it?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, no problem, real quick." And then on Symbolic, there was another beat somewhere where Jim Morris had pretty much said the same thing, like, "Ooh, I'm not sure about that one." And what was funny is, like, on the beat that Jim Morris had said, "Hey, that's not happening," I totally just robbed. It was a beat where I robbed from Sean Reiner. It was something awfully stupid. It was like, Jim, that one's not working for me. I was like, "Hey, cool, all right, I'll come up with something else." But as for Chuck, he was always, real gracious and real, just like, "Yeah, man, do your thing. It's going to be great."
How do you think he was represented in that DVD that was released about 12 hours? So I've actually got a copy of it, but do you think it was a fair representation of the man himself?
Is that the movie? Was that Death by Metal?
Exactly, yeah, that one, yep.
I still have yet to see that in full. As a matter of fact, I just watched a few pieces of it for the first time, like this past weekend. Getting a couple hours to sit down and watch a movie is sometimes that's even challenging. But, all I know is that I tried to represent my relationship with Chuck and our relationship with Chuck, like me and Stevie D and the rest of the band. I tried to represent that pretty accurately. It's pretty well known that and I've said this before. Chuck was a pretty complex guy. Like some days certain things would affect him that might not affect you or I. But I understand that. Sometimes people see something on TV that they really get aggro about, and I do remember that Chuck did not have a lot of trust for the music industry, so I understand that. I get that totally. And that's where I tried to represent that portion of it. Like, I tried to tell it like it is, but I have no desire or care to like attempt to throw Chuck under the bus or anything. There's no point in that. But Chuck was a complex guy, but he was, generally he was real cool to work with, and we had a good time up until he had to, he had to make the moves that he had to make in order to keep himself sane. When he had to, put Death aside after the Symbolic album, he broke Death up, and I think that's probably represented in the movie. And, he had to move forward. And the best way for Chuck to move forward was, the statement that was Control Denied for Chuck, and more power to him at the time. And absolutely, that's a cool thing. And I really liked all the stuff that Stevie D had to say, because Stevie D was there. Steve DiGiorgio, he was there. He was an original member of Death, like back in '85 sort of thing. When Chuck first moved out to California, Stevie D was hanging with him then. So Steve DiGiorgio and Chuck Schuldiner, they were best friends. And having Steve DiGiorgio involved in the movie gives it a real credence to me.
Yeah, like, credibility, absolutely.
Anybody else says, I don't care who you're, even me, doesn't matter what I have to say. It doesn't matter what, the guys from the earlier bands have to say, or even the ex-manager sort of thing. Doesn't matter. Stevie D was there. He knows what happened. He knows the history. That's all I'm saying. And I'm glad that Stevie D was a part of the movie. Absolutely.
Oh, good on you, mate. Thanks for answering those questions. They were one of the first death metal bands. Symbolic, or individual thought patterns and Deicide's lead were the reasons that I got into death metal so heavily. Of course, then I found Covenant.
Very cool, man.
You know, yeah, and then I think Symbolic's greatest death metal albums ever. And I know a lot of people tend to like the earlier, metal fans, the cult fans. They tend to like the earlier stuff. But mate, the stuff Symbolic, I just thought was probably the high mark in the catalogue. I've got to say, and that's really saying something when you're talking about Chuck Schuldiner. But mate, you're on it, and your drumming's an essential component to his sound.
Oh, very cool. I appreciate that, Andrew. That's very cool. Yeah, I remember when we released Symbolic, and yeah, the hardcore death metal fan, that the attitude was very pervasive throughout the scene. That wow, what the fuck happened to death?
Yeah,
like what?
Yeah.
And Chuck did not care, and I appreciate that absolutely. And that's where I am. I'm like I play music for me. If you guys enjoy it, that's a bonus, but it's not going to make me stop playing music if nobody cares, and I'm the only one who does. I'm still going to play music, and that's kind of the way Chuck was. He was a very brave person in terms of, like, he could have just gone the safe route, obviously, and just put out another Scream Bloody Gore or Leprosy or something like that. And, he had to go with how he was feeling, and any true musician can appreciate that, absolutely.
Well, you says, mate, I don't know how you juggle everything. I've got to say, I've long admired your work at it. You've got Dark Angel back up off the ground, and I remember getting the Combat reissues from late 90s, 1998, I think it was. Darkness Descends.
Right around then.
And I remember, because I had a band before, I was buying things blindly, but I was a young fella and I was getting into a lot of the really influential metal that I could find at the time. So I remember buying 7 Churches and Descends at the same time. And the first thing that hit me was, of course, I'm thinking Metallica ripped you guys off. That was the first thing I remember thinking when I listened to the album. And I know you've already addressed this out there, but apart from being famous for having Metallica rip you guys off with, is it One or I think I can't remember. It's one of the 2 songs that basically aped you guys.
It indeed was One. Absolutely.
As I say, apologies for going over old ground because I know you've addressed this already, but
I love the sound of my own voice.
Well, when you did the Metallica version, did you think, guys, this is really, really cut to the bone?
Well, it was just kind of what people were doing back then. It's like if you like something that influenced you and stuff, and I always tried to stay away from riff sharking directly, but hey, God, there's moments on Darkness Descends that were absolutely influenced by, like, say, a riff from Trouble, kind of thing. Bastards Will Pay. I remember that kind of slid that riff into Black Prophecy sort of thing. But it was kind of like, I remember joking, and I've said this before, joking that, because right around that time, after the album came out, and then the Grammys started coming around, and Metallica was up for the Grammy. I remember joking that if Metallica wins the Grammy, then I'm going to sue. And then, thank God Jethro Tull won, So I was like, oh, God,
that was funny.
That helps, because I'm not going to sue Metallica. I'm sure, everybody owes their... If you're a thrash metaler, you owe your career or your love of thrash metal to Metallica. So, I'm glad we could help you guys win the Grammy. You guys couldn't do it without us. You're welcome.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely. But
that was fun. I remember a bunch of buddies calling me up when I hadn't heard one yet, but I guess they were like playing it on the radio, little advanced track off the next Metallica record, and I hadn't heard it, but I was getting calls from buddies going, "Holy fuck, there's Dark Angel all over that." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. Well, I'm sure we robbed from them in the past, so it's okay, guys."
Oh, good. Yeah, that's a good attitude to take. Ultimately, I mean, there's no point with these things getting your knickers too much in a knot. I don't think it's kind of what's the imitation being the highest form of flattery, and it's Metallica copying you guys. Pretty bloody flattering.
There you go. Yeah, and I wasn't about to just put an end to my own career by suing Metallica. I would have been known as, hey, he's the guy that sued Metallica, and probably lost. So
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, no way. It was nice and it was fine, and it makes for a fun story 30 years later. It's pretty cool.
Yes, yeah. But what's the reason then for getting back together and coming to Australia? Is unfinished business for you here, or is this just purely for the love of metal?
It's it's more for the love of metal, and it's for the love of my guys in Dark Angel. It's like if there is an interest in the band from people that will reach out to us and say, do you guys want to come down here and play Australia or play any market that you guys haven't played? Like the guys in the band, after Dark Angel went just went by the wayside back in the early 90s, I kept on with my career and doing my stuff. And I know the rest of my guys, they got involved in their lives. And so now it's like if an Australia or a New Zealand or a South America or somewhere wants to reach out and say, hey, we're interested in having you guys come down here, of course we're going to do it. It's like, and throughout the years I've spoken with, Australia, the thing I love about Australia, I've always loved about Australia is you guys love it heavy. There's no effing around with, just whatever. Australia has always dug the heavier, more brutal aspects of metal, and I do too. So it's like if Australia has reached out, you're darn tootin', we're going to do it. Absolutely. So we've got a few shows booked for I guess the end of winter. Winter,
that's right. So beginning of spring, yeah.
And so we're super excited. It's going to be the first time the guys have been down there, and it's as all the other touring bands of Australia know, it's a challenging tour. It's super fun. The fans are some of the best in the world, but the travel,
cool.
It's like it's a challenge on the 20-year-old man. So, but I'm stoked for it. I'm glad the guys are going to be able to do it, and I'm glad to be able to bring Dark Angel down to a place that has, I've talked to a lot of Australian fans over the years, and they're like, hey, what about Dark Angel? And so, hey, now it's time for the Australian fan. Everybody that's ever come up to me over the past 20-something years, it's like, now we are coming, Do you think Dark Angel will ever come? Well, we are. So it's up to you guys to get out there and catch the shows, and we're stoked. It's going to be a killer show. We're going to be on fire, so it's going to be awesome.
So are you playing mini Darkness Descends, like one of those shows where you play the album back to front, or is it a greatest hits style setup?
It's just a Dark Angel set. I don't even know if we have greatest hits, but in our set anyway, regardless, we put 5 songs from Darkness in the set, So that's always the way. I know there's been times when we have not played Hunger of the Undead and Black Prophecy. Hell, I'd love to play Black Prophecy at the show. Maybe I'll talk to the guys about bringing that one in. But we're just going to go through our catalog, go through the album catalog, play a couple songs off We Have Arrived, Darkness, Leave Scars, Time Does Not Heal, and so have a good hour and 15-minute set, hour and a half set, whatever we are requested. We'll play the allotted amount and just try to bring some Dark Angel music to everybody and put a smile on everybody's face, and let them go, cool. I find there's something I could scratch off my list. I got to see Dark Angel and same year, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely at that level. You're with us and Exodus in these sort of bands that I honestly got ever see in Australia. But here we are having a conversation about you guys coming. So I'm glad that you have had feedback over the past 20-odd years from Australian. And I'm really glad also, too, that you're recognising the Australian fans that love extreme music. I think that in Australia, compared to a lot of other places, it's fairly commonplace for the casual fan to have picked an extreme metal act that they like a Morbid Angel or like that. And they generally don't dive a lot deeper than say some of the bigger hits, if you like. But when I say bigger hits, the Emptiness, this sort of stuff, But at least there's that willingness for the casual fan to get into extreme metal here, and I think that really augurs well for I don't know whether our domestic scene's as strong as probably what it could be. The go is with that, but meaning that I think there are some good bands, but they're just not that well supported. But in terms of international touring acts, man, we're there. So it's so glad that
Yeah,
you've been here many times, mate. Testament, strapping up Devin himself.
absolutely.
You got a real finger on the pulse for these sort of things.
Absolutely. I think that's awesome, and I go back with Australian metal, back to Hobbs, Angel of Death, and
Yeah.
things like that, remember the old Mortal Sin and stuff like that, and then the
Dude.
Destroyer 666 and stuff like that, which is, it's, you guys, I appreciate anywhere that really digs the extreme stuff, because it's like, okay, I identify with you, and I'm ready to go to battle for you. Let's bring a killer show down there. Australia was the first place that really got behind Strapping Young Lad when, the rest of the world at the time, when we put out City, everybody was, the press was into it. We were like the press darlings for people, but that doesn't mean it equates to fans digging your band. But Australia was the first place that totally got behind Strapping. So that's why we kept going down there, because it's like, fuck, we always have these killer shows down in Australia. Let's figure out a way to get down there on the regular, so that's pretty good.
Hey, let me ask you this question. As I mentioned, I've long admired your drumming. You're like the Gene Krupa of heavy metal.
That's very.
Well, you've got this beautiful swing through your playing, a bit like what Hellhammer does in Mayhem as well, in that it's you, actually. Even because you've appeared on so many albums, but generally speaking, when I listen to an album for, say, 2 or 3 minutes, I can go, yeah, that's Gene on drums.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, but it's 90s. Okay, so you came through the early 90s. You were still Angel, and of course you the Death stuff, which we've already spoken about. Mm-hmm. Were you sort of looking ahead at the lay of the land in the late 90s? What the hell is going to happen to heavy metal here?
I felt like I was, and that's why I got so into Strapping. That was such a perfect. It's like for me, it's like I willed this band to come completely out of the mist, for me.
Yeah.
And, Devin, City was so exciting for me, especially, because as you notice in the movie, in the Death movie, I was moving away from death at the time. It's like Symbolic was going to be my kind of final record for them. I was feeling towards the end, and because I was looking for a project like Strapping, and then along came Dev, and we had a great chemistry, and I was so behind the music. For me, City was so awesome, and I just love the fact that right down the middle of the album on the liner notes, it's like, hey, asshole, fuck you and your shitty music. I love that. Totally cocky. We rule. You suck. We're the baddest. You're not. I loved that, and just so much attitude, and we backed it up with, destroying music. And I remember all of our shows down in Australia, so that was, it came along at a perfect time for me, where I really felt like, I just got out of a project that really likes to look backwards, throughout history for its influence. And I've always liked being a part of the next level. And that's what Strapping was. And even for, even though maybe a lot of hardcore death metal fans didn't like Symbolic or Individual Thought Patterns, I did feel like, at least drumming wise, we're trying to take things to the next level, like Sean Reiner did on Human, laid down a fantastic drum album, just took metal drumming to a new level. I tried to, grab that baton and take it up even further. And for me, Strapping was that next level at the time. It's like, nobody's doing this. I don't care about you, Fear Factory, or even Ministry. They were kind of safe sounding, what they were doing for that industrial metal.
Yep.
and there was no boundaries of strapping. You know, you got the drummer that could play anything, and you got the singer that could sing anything, and all the crazy bells and whistles that went on around it. That's kick ass for me. So that's why strapping came along at a perfect time when I love looking towards the future rather than stepping back into the past. And that's why sometimes, you know, Dark Angel is a little challenging for me, but hey, Dark Angel is fun. You know, it's just fun getting together with bros, having a good time doing this. When we went by the wayside back in the mid 90s, it wasn't because we all hated each other. It's just, we got, you know, it's time to start doing other things. And so it's come around full circle where I get to play with some of my super good bros, some of my best pals, where, you know, I've known all these guys since I was a teenager. So that's why we try to bring a bit of the fun with Dark Angel. So that's where I'm able to set aside my proclivities of needing to play the next style, the next level. You know, I can kind of put that aside with Dark Angel and just relax and have some fun. You know, that's what that is.
Yeah. I had a chat to Devin about a year and a half, so maybe even 2 years ago now. And we did talk about you conversation, because I think you're the perfect drummer for him. You've said it, you know, you can play everything. It's not a boast. You literally can play everything. You're the perfect foil for him. But I'm paraphrasing him here, but he said that he thinks he might have done his dash in terms of he might not be able to work again, because he didn't mention anything negative that went on between you guys, I think, but Devin's a pretty complex guy and he had to go away and do some things. But I think he said the effect of, paraphrasing again, of course, but that meant I'm not sure that Gene wants to work with me anymore. It was that sort of a thing. Is that, do you think?
No, I got nothing against Dev. You know, absolutely. I love Dev and love his music, and I'm super excited that, I mean, I will flat out admit I don't pay as close attention to Dev's music like I used to. I'm just running doing my own thing a lot, but you know, I always get excited when I see Devin doing exciting things for himself, you know, and that's always awesome, you know, and I love Devin. You never say never to the future. You never know. And you know, now I see he's going off and doing some strapping stuff in his new on the new tour.
DVP thing, yeah.
Good on you, you know, just because the band no longer exists, you're the guy that helped create the music there, Dev. You play whatever the heck you want on stage, you know, so I'm sure he's going to find somebody that's going to do it justice, I would imagine. So I'm sure whoever gets to play drums for him is going to be super killer. So, you know, Dev works with a lot of killer musicians, and, you know, he's got Mike Keneally playing with him now, or being a part of his project. Now, that's a great mixture there, you know, because I play with Mike in Death Clock, and, you know, Mike's a next level musician, and he's going to be great working with Dev. They're very similar, you know, very studious, very, very, you know, erudite gentlemen, and so I think that's a good pairing. You know, I'm glad those guys are together. So
good on
that's
you, mate.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, mate. I'll make this my last question for you, and it's an obvious question, but I've got to. You've done so much. You've achieved a lot. You really are death metal's preeminent, extreme metals, along with Pete Sand, preeminent drummer. And Lee Harrison. I've got to put Lee Harrison, of course, from Monstrosity, who's outstanding. But mate, my point is you've done a lot. Okay, so when you look back all of the projects, albums that you've worked on, is there a high watermark for you personally?
Well, in the past, I go right to strapping. You know, City, Alien, those are awesome. And, you know, obviously the death stuff, that's a good, you know, good watermark for a lot of folks there. I didn't want to stop at that. You know, like, for instance, as my career went on a little further, there's albums that are very, very underground records that I put out, like from the Almighty Punch Drunk. That's a really fun killer record. That album was called Music for Them Asses, and it was some next level thrash metal that is like, wow, this doesn't sound like anybody else. and a little after that, there was Mechanism, another Vancouver-based band that you can find their album on like iTunes and Spotify and things like that. Their album was called Inspired Horrific, and that was probably the craziest drumming I've done to date in terms of a whole lot of crazy beats, crazy time signatures, crazy countings and things like that. And it's also pretty catchy. The riffs are killer and the vocals are awesome. We got the Heathen from Zimmer's Hole does the vocals on that, and that was always killer. And then there's Death Clock. I love playing with Death Clock. That's one of my all-time faves. That's I love working with Brendan and love doing Death Clock stuff. And we're Death Clock is kind of eyeing the future. We'll see what happens with Death Clock, but there's a spark of life involved in Death Clock that there wasn't not that long ago. So that's fun. We'll see where that goes. I'm hoping for the best there. And I got to admit, the stuff that is kind of rocking me the most for what I do is the project that myself and my wife Lara have together. And we don't have a name for it yet. We're writing, but that is the most extreme drumming I'm doing with anything. That's the most extreme music that I'm involved in at the moment, and I'm super stoked on that. And hopefully, sometime in the nearer future, we'll be able to have a release and start getting out there and doing stuff. But I'm super stoked on that because that's absolute next level metal. That's the way I see me and Lara's project. So I'm super excited about that. So, but I've got, I couldn't even tell you like my catalog. There's times when an album comes up, like I'll hear a song somewhere, like at a club or something. You hear it in the background, and somebody's playlist between bands or whatever. And I'm just like, God, that sounds so familiar. And somebody will point out, that's you, dude. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Oh, I forget, shit.
Yeah. Well, that's a great answer. Yeah, because there are so many. There's Testament as well. There's Demonic here on that album. That was a good album, actually.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
it was a good album. Came out
that's my favorite Testament album. Flat.
Yeah, likewise.
I will see if we ever play any song from that live. I've been playing with Testament for 8 years, and we have not played one song off Demonic ever.
That's a shame. Yep.
But we play the piss out of the Gathering, and we play songs off the Ritual, and all that sort of stuff. But hey, I'm all for playing Demonic. I'd come out and play any song off that. Killer version of that one. But
yeah, there you go. Mate, it's been great to have a chat to you. Thank you so much for doing that. I've got 2 kids these days, one of whom is beside me here right now. She's just come in to say hello. But I find it I find it very difficult to get out at on weekends and stuff just with 2 young kids, mate. But if there is a show that I'm going to try to go to, it's your one. So good luck with it.
That's okay. Thank you.
No worries at all, mate. All right. Well, thanks very much for the conversation. Appreciate it, mate.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. Likewise, and hey, we'll catch you down there in a couple months. Absolutely.
You, mate.
I got to admit, I don't have the dates memorized yet, but if we could mention the dates, and also I'm doing some clinics while I'm out there.
I didn't know
some drum
that.
clinics.
There you go.
At some of the local places. So I'd like to mention that if we could. And I admit this press day got dropped on. I'm doing a press day today, and it got dropped on me an hour and a half ago.
Oh, God. Okay.
So I'm rather unprepared, but I would like to mention that we are playing all those shows in Australia, and I'm also doing three clinics, 3 or 4 clinics directly right after the last show. So everybody pay attention, keep your eyes open, watch the social medias, and we'll keep everybody abreast on what exactly is happening, where and when.
Yeah, I've got a podcast series, so I always tell people what into the conversation is, and also the dates of the show. So I'll just track down
Very cool.
where the
All right. Appreciate that.
the
Thank you.
that's fine. Yeah, I mean, God, that's what we've got to do, mate. We're here to spread the good word. But no, I'll try and find. You're right. You go. I'll find the dates for you. Oh, I'll find it afterwards, mate. But yeah, I'll definitely put the dates your clinic in there, mate. So
Fantastic.
that's great.
I appreciate that. Very cool, man.
Nice work, mate. All right, congratulations again on a wonderful career, mate. Please keep on doing what you're doing, as I'm sure you will.
Thank you, Andrew. I will not stop. Absolutely. I'll be doing this for years and years and years. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure, mate. No worries at all. Come in.
All right, brother. Well, hey, man, we'll see you in a couple months and have some fun, man.
High five, mate. Will do. Absolutely.
Right on.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Cheers, mate.
All right, we'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye. You've been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. That interview subject you just heard from was the one and only drum god himself, Gene Hoglan. Thanks so much for listening.